thank you so very much to taking time out from your Sunday afternoon to see us today for Letters from New York, the music of Chris DeBlasio. A few things before we start. There is a program that is available. You can access it via your mobile phone or whatever device it is that you have by visiting www.liveinhg.com. That is where you can see the color program, and I hope you enjoy that. Today's presentation will have no intermission. It's around an hour long, and we hope that you enjoy it. In the 1970s, New York City is a broken, ungovernable metropolis barreling into anarchy. A mere island off the coast of America, New York is an improbable and seemingly impossible melting pot of people from different cultures and backgrounds. A city of lost people and hidden treasures, lovers and the heartbroken, weirdos, drama kings and queens, the immigrant, the entrenched, the very poor, the very rich, and most importantly, the group of people who walk the delicate tightrope between the two extremes. Artists. It was the only place that Chris DeBlasio ever wanted to be. Presenting Chris DeBlasio's song cycle, Villagers. The poetry is by Ilsa Gilbert and Perry Brass.
For 2 hours I had a little blue elephant named Paris. He was blue like the sky in fairy tales, only his skin was shaggy like clouds. One eye, the dreaming one, was cast lower than the other, which pierced your own eye, and made you feel as warm as being under the covers on a chill night when you were a child. Only a mother could love his nose, and I was that mother. Over his back lay a silken saddle, all in stripes, and around his blue neck was a golden chain, the kind that attaches you to happiness. Paris, blue baby elephant, was a gift to me, like the giving of love. Paris belongs to someone else now. I am sad. I hope he is happy. The heart does not care. It breaks and leaves like dishes, car horns, clever in the wake, but the heart does not care. It breaks and leaves the broken moment for the whole body to bear. Chords fill the room, creating order, though the notes individually stem from the disordered cortex of the composer's fevered brain, fibrillating in the throes of cerebral composition. His wife tidies the room, straightening the music on shelves, tossing knickknacks and bibelots of their trips abroad. She is thinking of her conversation with the butcher, who wrapped kidneys and liver as he spoke of his son's graduation from the police academy. His pride, she understood, a tangible accomplishment he could boast of to his cronies at the cabaret, where they drank coolers and eyed the whores, congregating at the far end of the bar. But what could she say to her bridge club ladies? My husband writes music no one understands. My husband creates sounds that make my ears rattle and set my teeth on edge. It is a constant mental knot to scream. He earns money in ways I cannot speak of, pushing papers in some obscure office where there is a cheap and pretty clerk who compounds my miseries, which I cannot speak of. And when I teach students who do not care about declensions or the mayor of Casterbridge, or Lorna Doomsoon in some deep and dark forest, I in a darkening myself, wandering in a miasma of self-doubt and self-hate. How can my husband get such pleasure from being lost in a world of sound music that beats the heart like the butcher pounds meat on his wooden block? She dusted the dark mahogany of the polished piano, sighing as her husband looked up and through her, lost in the black and white of the ordered piano keys. She took a china knick-knack and smashed it over his head.
I met Chris on January 11th, 1986. It was only my second time in January in New York City, and I was trying to look like I was quite accustomed to sub-zero temperatures. This fooled no one, since I was wrapped in a winter coat that made me look like one of the Wicked Witch's West Castle guards. For some reason I still cannot fathom, I kept walking up Broadway past my block, West 101. Fate, I guess. A remarkably handsome man was heading toward me. He had a lopey, yet not unattractive gait, long legs, and wore a black leather jacket. His shoulders were hunched up against the cold. We passed each other, but turned around, facing off like gunfighters in the Old West. There was no subtlety in this cruise. It was far too cold for that. "Hey," he said, very butch. "Hey," I replied, attempting the same tone. I looked him over. He had devilish eyes and dark curly hair and looked a little like a young Dirk Bogarde. I was tongue-tied, scarcely believing this babe had stopped for me. "Well," he said at last, "you want to get a slice of pizza?" Sexiest line I ever heard, or so it seemed at the moment. We went to the nearest pizzeria and ordered and talked about art, and Star Trek, and George Carlin, and history. He invited me upstairs to his apartment, and I went. Years later, he confessed that he only diverted us to the pizzeria that night in order to see me without my winter coat and to make sure that I was remotely anthropodically shaped correct. That's Chris for you, always methodical. He lived in a 3-bedroom apartment he shared with 2 roommates who were conveniently absent. The living room was dimly lit with an abundance of old heavy wood furniture and 2 pianos given pride of place. He rolled a joint and gave it to me, sitting himself at the larger of 2 of the pianos. I lay back, trying in vain to look simultaneously studly and soigné. I stared out the 2nd floor window as the snow fell on the street sign proclaiming Broadway. Chris's gorgeous hands fluttered over the keyboard, picking out the opening roulades of Gretchen und Spinnrad. Schubert, I muttered. My favorite, how did you know? He leered at me and began singing. No one had ever worked so hard to get in my pants. I think I became a New Yorker in that moment. He finished a song and began another, looking back at me to see if I could identify it. Korngold, I guessed. Luckiest guess in my life. It occurred to me that I had never worked so hard to let someone into my pants. But he was worth the effort. We spent the night together. Good sex, not great. And 2 days later, I received a manuscript in the mail. It was a new song called To a Friendly Neighbor. It was practically a dare to fall in love with him, with the adjective friendly simultaneously warning me not to.
Sipping Glenfiddich at 10 in the evening, I'm so inconsolably blue. The cat by the fire has no other desire than to do what her kind always do. The telly is glassing its luminous glow on the magazine I'm browsing through. The young men inside have nothing to hide, but the one that I'm wanting is you. Yes, it's strange, the one that I'm wanting is you. The ravenous wind and the cavernous cold find my fort reward walls an impasse. The snow looks quite nice through the frost and the ice that collect on the double pane glass. How easily lies my untroubled mind, for there's nothing that I now must do. The day was well spent, I paid off the rent, but the one thing still lacking is you. Kiss a please, the one that I'm wanting is you. You called me superior, you said I had bad taste. You said my physique and my features were fun. This gorgeous exterior is going to waste, for nothing is drearier than a leader for one. The piano is wearing its best Spanish shawl, all dressed up with no place to go. I've only to finish my glass of Glenfiddich, and then it's to bed in an hour or so. How can I sleep in this four-poster heap when there's something I much rather do? That I've got a problem as plain as the day, and also a hard-on that won't go away. On sober reflection, it seems fair to say the only thing needed is you. Ain't that strange? It's just such a bore without you.
When Chris came to New York, he became part of the larger community of LGBTQ individuals and artists who became each other's surrogate family. Chris found his own family at Calvary Episcopal Church, working as a baritone soloist under the brilliant organist Calvin Hampton. Chris found in Calvin a kindred spirit and mentor. He also became close friends with Harry Huff, Calvin's prodigiously talented, pot-smoking associate, Marshall Forrester, another organist, and later, Harry's best friend, soprano Virginia Lowry. They all eventually lived together in a sprawling, elegant pre-war apartment where they held frequent salon concerts. It was a time that all would remember very fondly for its unbridled fun and camaraderie, but it was the 1980s in New York City, and the gay community was about to get leveled by a Category 5 hurricane, the AIDS epidemic. Paul Jacobs was the first to fall ill and die. A literal genius in the world of classical music at the time, he was the longtime pianist and harpsichordist of the New York Philharmonic, in addition to being a beloved educator. A year later, Chris's group was devastated by the mysterious death of Calvin Hampton from an equally unknown and sudden illness. More friends and acquaintances inevitably followed. The poet Perry Brass made it a point to start writing the names down of people he knew who had died from this strange new disease they were calling GRID, or gay-related immune deficiency, but then stopped when he came to the 35th name. Walking down the street with Chris after what was yet another memorial service, he broke down. "I am so sick of these services. I refuse to go to another one of these memorials." "Oh, Perry, there will be more and more and more of these services to come," Chris replied. Once the first HIV test became available, Chris signed up and then found out that he was positive for the disease. As a result, he threw himself into advocacy work with ACT UP and studying the disease, eventually helping to create medical papers, authoring these same papers that would eventually reach the US Congress and the eyes of Dr. Anthony Fauci. Composition receded into the background, and Chris's surrogate family sprung into action to care for and support each other. During this time, Chris wrote the cycle In Endless Ascent with the poetry by Elizabeth Bishop.
Each day, with so much ceremony, begins with birds, with bells, with whistles from a factory. Such white gold skies our eyes first open on, such brilliant walls that for a moment we wonder, where is the music coming from? The energy, the day was meant for what ineffable creature we must have missed, oh probably and takes his earthly nature instantly falls, victim of all intrigue, assuming memory and mortal fatigue. Still slowly coming into sight and showering into stippled faces, darkening, condensing on his light. In spite of all the dreaming, squandering upon him with that look, suffers our uses and abuses, sinks through the drift of bodies, sinks through the drift of glasses, to evening, to the beggar in the park, who, weary, without lamp or book, prepares stupendous studies. The fire event standing alone in big black caves. And suddenly you're in a different place, where everything seems to happen in waves. And most of the jokes you just can't catch, like dirty words rubbed off a slate. And the songs are long, but somehow dim, and it gets so terribly late. And coming out of the brownstone house to the grey sidewalk, the watered street, one side of the building rises with a song, like a glistening field of wheat. Wheat, not oats, dear. I'm afraid if it's wheat, it's none of your sowing. Nevertheless, I'd like to know what you are doing and where you are
Thankfully, Chris's break from composition was not to be long-lived. Both Will Berger, now Chris's long-term partner, and Perry Brass urged Chris to get back into composition, to which he basically said, "What's the point?" Perry even came up with the idea of writing a song cycle about AIDS, which Chris immediately shut down. It was only after he was able to travel to an artist's retreat in Taos that Chris found time and inspiration to set a handful of Perry's poems to music, creating the cycle all the way through Evening. The cycle was dedicated to Michael Dash, a friend and colleague of Chris's. Michael Dash started his career as a boy soprano, appearing in the televised version of Leonard Bernstein's Mass and in the original recording of Robert Crumb's Ancient Voices of Children. Now fully grown and very imposing, he had the distinction of being a black man in a classical world who sang not only professionally as a baritone, but he sang as a countertenor as well. Like Chris, he was also HIV positive. Michael gave the premiere of All the Way Through the Evening with the composer at the piano.
Witness sometimes the way the evening dies, the glow charred black to ruddy dust, pushing against the drag of sleep, all the way to morning. I try to keep its lowering darkness somewhere just above the head. Still comes the slack of things without dreams or thoughts dead. I hope, nor old delicious pictures of the world enjoyed in the light. But through the tarnish of fatigue slips some thin familiar dream, cutting the dark waters with his silver oars, here just a half-breath long, warmth before the cold. One last ray calls before the disappearance of to kiss your wrist at night. I say goodbye to you in public. I was afraid you'd be upset and wrench your hand away, or perhaps be embarrassed by my feelings rushing past those walls of decorum that define what we can do, and so held back until the end, not to see you again for months, or who knows, turned away, I ran before the crowd detached. When the cars began to move, and losing nothing worse than losing you, I kissed your small lips hungrily, with everyone behind me like glass, until the noise resumed. And I dashed the exit gate and watched your train push out, and stood gripping the gatepost, jerking like a heat storm. Button all the way up our overcoat. slapping the leaves hard. I cannot hold on to your hands or your neck. You tell me I'll be cold. You prepare for the evening. The wind has resumed, and the day ended. Night has fallen. Night at last. Forever the beautiful men ride into the night. Some are primitive and beat the saddest songs of one or two gaunt and shifting notes, while others throw shadows traced with purple and the world from one another in the mouths of seashells. Now come the winds up above the Orient, and the setting sun dissolves like crimson clips from poppies in the surf. Still a certain pinkness spreads up above the troubles of our age. There the clouds are meteoric, and the horses still chase on, unfurling steamy webs from their nostrils. Under the innocent whispers of heroes. Walt Whitman has come down today to the hospital room. He rocks back and forth in the crisis. He says it's good we haven't lost our closeness, and cries as each one is taken. He has written many lines about these years, the disfigurement of young men, and the wars of harder tongues and close minds. The body in pain can bear such nobility, but words have the edge of poison when spoken bitterly. Now he takes a dying man in his arms and tells him how deeply flows the river that takes the old man and his friends this evening. It is a river dusk and lamentation. Waltzes, dear river, I will carry this young man to your bank. I'll put him myself on one of your strong flat boats, and we'll sail together all the way through evening, all the way through evening, all the way through
The premiere of All the Way Through Evening went very well. Mimi Stern-Wolf, an early champion of Chris's work, remarked that the church was so quiet you could hear a pin drop, and that there was no doubt that the audience had heard something very special. Afterwards, Chris continued on with life, enjoying walks in the village with Will, seeing movies and friends. He and Will Berger were married by a Catholic priest, no less, at Will's insistence. A confirmed agnostic, Chris gracefully acquiesced. Chris also continued to participate in the primitive HIV treatments available at the time, hoping for the best, but enduring a lot of miserable side effects in the process. During the autumn of 1992, his health started to fail. In July of 1993, he checked into St. Vincent's Hospital and died a few days later on July 23rd, 1993. He was 34 years old. What are we to make of this? Life is famously unfair, but in Chris's case it seems doubly so. In speaking with Chris's friends in the course of this project, the same thought keeps coming up. The worst part is not knowing. What would Chris DeBlasio become had he lived? How would his music have developed with the benefit of time and experience? Who would he have influenced? What would he have achieved when would he have achieved the recognition that as artists we all dream of? Yes, the hardest part is not knowing. As far as New York is concerned, it's changed a lot too, and not necessarily for the better. Manhattan, and especially the fabled West Village, is one of the most expensive places to live in the whole country. St. Vincent's has been torn down. The wholesomeness of Disney has taken over Broadway, where peep shows, strip clubs, and adult bookstores used to proliferate. The corporations have invaded, the neighborhood has been gentrified, and I can't help thinking how different it would be if this lost generation, the people and artists like Chris who lost their lives to AIDS, had lived. They were New York. They made it an exciting and special place to live. As a result, that New York is gone forever. Thank you for coming to our concert today. Thank you for celebrating the memory of Chris DeBlasio and for his music, and helping us to honor the city that, for those who love it, is the greatest city in the entire world. Thank you.